So what did you miss at Jubilee today? Well, you missed a full day. You missed a fantastic godly play story. Anne opened the service by telling the story of creation and wondering where we are personally in the story, inviting people to think about the story and not simply accept it or dismiss it based on some preconception, but to engage in the story and let it inspire. And you could have heard a pin drop as she told the story and took us through the images. It was wonderful. It was so good that it seemed to make sense that we would move the rest of the service around to make sure that we didn't have too much going on. so so we jumped over the story of Jeremiah the prophet buying a field, and we'll come to that another day. Instead, we focused on Luke's gospel and the story of the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man who ignores Lazarus at his gate and finds himself on the other side of this life, finds himself in death, being tormented in Hades. He discovers a chasm so great he cannot cross it. And there's Father Abraham and Lazarus. And he calls out to Father Abraham, asking that he allow Lazarus to give him just some water on his tongue. But that's not going to happen. He asks Father Abraham to send Lazarus to his father's house to warn his brothers so they may escape this fate. And Abraham says this chasm is fixed. And if we're not going to believe Moses and the prophets, then who can we believe? There's some question about what if somebody came back from the dead, which makes us wonder. But I couldn't get over the fact that the rich man is in hell, apparently for being rich. Luke does seem to have a chip on his shoulder, or a very preferential option for the poor. So we began to wonder together, are we damned for our wealth? Is that a given? What is the rich man's sin? How is it that we don't even know his name, that all he is rich? Is it that he ignores Lazarus, that he has not the eyes to see him or the heart to recognize there's a man there, a person there? And there may be something to that. You notice in the parable that the rich man speaks to Abraham instead of to Lazarus. He asks Abraham to send Lazarus to help him. He never actually speaks to poor Lazarus, even though on the other side of death, Lazarus has been rewarded. Why wouldn't he speak to Lazarus? We wondered about that. We wondered about a chasm so great that nothing can cross it. And we wondered if perhaps that's not a chasm fixed by God, but in fact a chasm created by us. When we imagine that our wealth, financial or otherwise, somehow makes us better, or is an indication of God's blessing, somehow puts us in the major leagues and leaves everybody else in the minor leagues. We wondered if perhaps we don't create that chasm. And then we wondered if that chasm can be overcome. And I noted Father Abraham was also a rich man, and yet he's on the right side of this chasm. So we wondered about that a lot. And then we came to time for prayer, and we prayed for eyes to see and hearts to feel, and we prayed for all the invisible people in our lives, that they become visible, that we dare to see. And we prayed for ourselves, sometimes feeling left invisible, out of the loop, unknown. And then together we shared Psalm 91. And I will raise you up on eagle's wings. Our cantors led us through the verses, and as a congregation we sang the chorus, and we felt the assurance of God that there is no chasm so great that it cannot be crossed. We are reminded of Jesus, who crosses chasms all the time and draws us together, draws us to him and to God. And so we left singing of creation, just as we started hearing the service started the service hearing of creation, we left singing of it, and we went out into the world prepared to not only recognize the beauty of creation, but to be the beauty in creation. So that's what you missed today, and I'm sorry we missed you. Hopefully we'll get to see you next week, and it'll be memorable. It'll be worthwhile. Until we see you again, God bless.